The Galactic Council Station was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It floated in neutral space, far from any single world, and served as the meeting place for over 300 alien civilizations. For 10,000 years, the Council had maintained order among the stars. Their word was law. Their decisions were final. No species had ever them and survived. But humanity had only been part of this galaxy for 80 years. They did not yet understand how things worked. At least, that was what High Chancellor believed as he watched the human ambassador enter the great chamber. Ambassador Laura walked with her head held high. She was a small woman compared to most of the aliens in the room. They stood 8 feet tall with scales that shimmered like polished metal. They had 4 arms and towered over everyone. They resembled insects, their compound eyes watching everything at once. Among these giants, a human should have looked weak. Laura did not look weak. She took her place at the center of the chamber, where a single platform waited for her. Above her, arranged in rising circles, sat the representatives of 300 worlds. High Chancellor occupied the highest seat of all, his reptilian face showing what passed for amusement among his kind. Ambassador said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "You have been summoned to accept the terms of peace. The Council has been generous. You will surrender the 3 worlds your species has illegally colonized in the Orion sector. In return, we will not impose further penalties. Do you accept?" Laura looked up at him. She had prepared for this moment for 3 years. Every word she spoke today had been chosen with care. "High Chancellor, I have a question before I give my answer." Waved one clawed hand. "Ask." "You say these worlds were illegally colonized. You claim the Dominion had prior claim to them, but when our ships arrived, these planets were empty. No settlements, no markers, no signs that anyone had ever set foot on them. We terraformed them. We built cities. 2 million humans now call these worlds home." She paused. "So my question is simple. Where were they for the past 3 centuries?" Murmurs spread through the chamber. A diplomat with deep blue skin leaned forward with interest. She had always found humans fascinating. They asked questions that other species were too afraid to voice. High Chancellor silenced the chamber with a sharp hiss. "The claim is ancient and documented. It does not matter that the worlds were temporarily unoccupied. The claim exists. The Council has it. Your colonization was therefore illegal. These are the facts, Ambassador. Do you accept the terms or not?" Laura nodded slowly. "I understand. You are telling me that a piece of paper written 300 years ago matters more than the lives of 2 million people. You are telling me that empty claims hold more weight than the blood and sweat my people poured into building those colonies. You are telling me that the Galactic Council values documents over human beings." "I am telling you," replied coldly, "that the law is the law." "Then let me tell you something, High Chancellor." Laura's voice did not rise, but somehow it filled the entire chamber. "Humanity rejects your terms." Silence fell. Complete and absolute silence. In 10,000 years, no species had ever openly rejected a council ruling, stared at her as if she had suddenly grown a second head. "You reject our terms," he repeated. "Completely and without reservation. We will not surrender our worlds. We will not abandon our people. And we will not bow to an ultimatum disguised as diplomacy." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative she could. "We came to this galaxy hopping to find friendship and cooperation. Instead, we found a system designed to keep younger species in their place. They did not want those worlds until we made them valuable. This entire proceeding is nothing but theft with legal language wrapped around it." Rose from his seat, his scales flushing dark with anger. "You dare to accuse this council of theft? You are barely evolved primates playing at civilization. Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. We were building empires when your ancestors were still living in caves." Laura did not flinch. "And yet here we are, standing before you as equals. That must be very frustrating for you." Laughter erupted from harsh and cold. Equals. You are not our equals, Ambassador. You are children throwing a tantrum because you did not get what you wanted. Very well. If you reject peace, you will have war. The Dominion will reclaim their worlds and the Council will support them. When your colonies are burning, perhaps then you will learn respect. Laura gathered her documents and stepped down from the platform. She paused at the chamber door and looked back one final time. Humanity has never responded well to threats, High Chancellor. Every tyrant in our history has made the same mistake you are making now. They assumed that because we were smaller, we were weaker. They assumed that because we preferred peace, we were afraid of war. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They were all wrong, and so are you. She left the chamber without another word. The vote was held within the hour. Every species present voted in favor of sanctions against humanity and authorized the Dominion to reclaim the disputed worlds by any means necessary. A voted with the majority, but her hands trembled as she did so. Something about the human ambassador's confidence troubled her. Laura had not seemed like a woman facing defeat. She had seemed like a woman who knew something they did not. 3 days later, on the bridge of the battleship Ironclad, Admiral Daniel Carter received word of the Council's decision. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen 30 years of service. He read the message twice, then set it aside. "Orders, Admiral," his first officer asked. Daniel Carter smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Signal all ships, battle stations. The Council has made their choice." He looked out at the stars where his fleet of 200 warships waited in perfect formation. Now they get to live with the consequences. Fleet Master L stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominant Will, and watched his armada move through space like a swarm of hungry predators. 400 warships, the largest fleet assembled in 2 centuries. More than enough to crush the pathetic human defenders and reclaim what rightfully belonged to his people. The target was New Montana, the largest of the 3 disputed colonies. 2 million humans lived on that world. By the end of the day, they would be prisoners of the Dominion, and their planet would be stripped of every resource worth taking. "Fleet Master," his second officer reported, "we will enter the system in 15 minutes. "Excellent." L's compound eyes reflected the stars ahead. "Signal all ships to prepare for combat. The Council intelligence reports suggest only a small defense force, patrol vessels and a few destroyers. This will be over quickly." He had studied the reports carefully. Humans were weak creatures, soft skin, fragile bones. They relied on their technology to survive, but their technology was inferior to engineering. The Council had assured him that human weapons were decades behind the galactic standard. This battle would be nothing more than target practice. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Montana system. L leaned forward, eager to see the terror on his enemies' faces. What he saw instead made his blood run cold. The space around New Montana was not empty. It was filled with human warships, not a handful of patrol vessels, not a few destroyers. An entire fleet waited for them in a defensive formation around the planet. L counted quickly. 100 ships, 150, 200. "That is impossible," he whispered. "The Council said they had no major fleet presence in this sector." "Fleet Master, the humans are hailing us." L straightened himself. Perhaps they wished to surrender. That would make sense. Even with 200 ships, they were still outnumbered 2-1. Accept the transmission. A human face appeared on his screen. An older male with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a military uniform covered in medals and insignia. "This is Admiral Daniel Carter of the Earth Defense Force," the human said. "You have entered sovereign human territory with hostile intent. I am offering you one chance to withdraw. Take your fleet and go home. No one needs to die today." L laughed. The sound echoed through his command deck. "You are outnumbered, human. You cannot win this battle. Surrender now and I will be merciful." The human admiral did not seem impressed. I was hoping you would say that. Carter out. The transmission ended. L waved his hand dismissively. All ships, attack formation, destroy them all. The two fleets moved toward each other. L felt confident. Numbers would decide this battle, as they always did. The first salvos were exchanged, and he waited for the human ships to crumble under superior firepower. They did not crumble. The human vessels moved with a speed and agility that seemed impossible for ships of their size. They dodged incoming fire and returned shots with terrifying accuracy. L watched in disbelief as one of his cruisers exploded from a single hit. Then another. Then three more. "What is happening?" he demanded. "The Council said human weapons were inferior." "Fleet Master, their weapons are punching through our shields like they do not exist. We have never encountered this technology before." On the other side of the battle, Commander Morgan guided her destroyer relentless through the chaos with practiced ease. She was young for a ship captain, only 32 years old, but she had trained for this moment her entire career. "All squadron ships follow my lead," she ordered. "We are going for their flagship." Her squadron of 12 destroyers broke away from the main fleet and dove into the heart of the formation. Enemy fire filled the space around them, but had memorized every pattern, every weakness in tactics. She knew exactly where to go. "Fire everything at the flagship's engines," she commanded. 12 ships fired as one. The concentrated blast tore through the dominant Will's rear section. The massive vessel shuddered and began to drift, its engines dead. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. L was thrown from his feet as his ship rocked violently. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted damage reports that grew worse with every passing second. "Fleet Master, we have lost engine power. Shields are failing. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. "This cannot be happening." L pulled himself upright using his command console. "The humans were supposed to be weak. The Council promised us an easy victory." But the Council had been wrong, or perhaps the Council had lied. Either way, L was watching his fleet die around him. Human ships tore through formations with ruthless efficiency. Every tactic he tried was countered before it could begin. It was as if the humans knew exactly what he was going to do before he did it. 3 hours later, it was over. Of the 400 warships that had entered the system, only 173 remained. The rest were debris floating in the void or crippled hulks waiting to be captured. L's flagship was among the survivors, but only barely. His crew had managed to restore partial engine power, enough to limp away from the battlefield. Admiral Carter did not pursue. He let the survivors go. "Admiral," one of his officers asked, "why are we not finishing them?" Daniel Carter watched the retreating enemy fleet on his display. "Because I want them to deliver a message. I want every species in this galaxy to know what happened here today. They came with 400 ships. They left with less than half, and they never even got close to our planet." On the surface of New Montana, General stood down his ground forces. The civilians they had been preparing to evacuate emerged from shelters, looking up at a sky that was still free. The battle had been won in space. The enemy had never touched their world. L transmitted his report to the Galactic Council from his damaged ship. His message was short and filled with despair. "The humans were ready. They knew we were coming. Our fleet is destroyed. Their weapons are beyond anything the Council described. We need reinforcements. We need help." High Chancellor received the message in his private chambers. He read it 7 times, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not change. The impossible had happened. A younger species had defeated a Council-backed military force in open battle. The humans had not been bluffing. They had been preparing, and now realized with growing horror that he had no idea what else they might have prepared for. The Galactic Council Station had never experienced panic before. For 10,000 years, it had been a place of order and control. Decisions were made. Species obeyed. The system worked because no one had ever seriously challenged it. Now representatives rushed through corridors whispering urgent conversations. News of the defeat had spread across the galaxy in hours. 400 warships destroyed by a species that the Council had dismissed as primitive newcomers. It was not just a military loss. It was an embarrassment that shook the very foundations of Council authority. High Chancellor called an emergency session. Every representative was required to attend. The great chamber filled with anxious faces and nervous voices. When took his seat, the room fell silent. "The situation is serious but not hopeless," he began. "The underestimated human capabilities. We will not make the same mistake. I am calling for a full mobilization of Council military forces. Together, we will crush this rebellion and restore order." Before anyone could respond, the chamber doors opened. Every head turned to see who dared interrupt the High Chancellor. Ambassador Laura walked in. Gasps echoed through the room. She had rejected Council authority. She had started a war. She should have been hiding on her, preparing for the inevitable defeat. Instead, she strode into the heart of enemy territory as if she owned the place. Ambassador hissed, "You have no right to be here. Your species is now an enemy of the Council. Guards, remove her." "I would not do that," Laura said calmly. "I request the floor to present evidence of crimes committed by members of this Council. According to your own laws, any representative may present such evidence, and it must be heard." Hesitated. She was right. That law existed, though it had not been used in centuries. If he refused her now, it would look like he had something to hide. "Very well," he said through clenched teeth. "Speak your piece, then leave." Laura took the central platform and looked around the chamber. 5 years ago, my government received intelligence suggesting that certain Council members were planning to contain and eventually subjugate humanity. We did not want to believe it. We hoped we were wrong. She paused. We were not wrong. She activated a display that projected into the center of the chamber. Documents appeared. Communications. Meeting recordings. The evidence filled the air like an accusation made visible. These are internal communications between High Chancellor and leaders of the Dominion. They date back 7 years, beginning shortly after humanity established our first major colonies. She highlighted a specific exchange. In this message, discusses the need to stop human expansion before we become too powerful to control. He proposes creating a legal justification for military action, a false claim to human-settled worlds that could be enforced by Council authority. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Representatives leaned forward to read the evidence for themselves. "These negotiations were never about peace," Laura continued. "They were designed to fail. You wanted humanity to reject your terms so you could paint us as aggressors. Then you planned to divide our space among your allies." She displayed another set of documents. "Here are the proposed territorial divisions that would take the Orion colonies, that would claim Earth's outer settlements. Even our was assigned to someone, every human system carved up like meat at a feast." High Chancellor rose from his seat, his scales flushing dark with rage. "These documents are forgeries, human lies designed to divide us." "They came from your own secure networks," Laura replied, "downloaded by agents who have been watching you for years." At the back of the chamber, a man stepped out of the shadows. He was unremarkable in appearance, average height, brown hair, the kind of face you forgot immediately after seeing it. That had made Agent Sam very good at his job. "My name is Sam," he announced. "I have served as an intelligence operative for the Earth Defense Force for 15 years. For the last 10, I have been embedded within Council networks. I have watched, I have listened, I have collected evidence." He smiled slightly. "You should really update your security systems. They are embarrassingly easy to bypass." Chaos erupted. Representatives shouted accusations at each other. Some demanded proof that the evidence was authentic. Others demanded to know who else had been compromised. A sat frozen in her seat, her 4 hands gripping the armrests. She had voted for war against humanity. She had believed the Council was acting justly. Now she learned that she had been a pawn in someone else's game. Admiral Aura, commander of the defense fleet, pushed through the crowd to confront directly. "Is this true? Did you manipulate us into this war?" "Do not be foolish," snapped. "The humans are obviously lying." "Then explain these documents. Explain the communications with your personal encryption codes. Explain how they knew our fleet movements before we did." Had no explanation. His silence spoke louder than any words. Thousands of light years away, Senator Palmer addressed the human population in a broadcast that reached every colony, every station, every ship in human space. "My fellow citizens," she said, "by now you have heard that our government rejected the Council's peace terms. Some of you may wonder why we chose conflict over compromise. The truth is that there was never any real peace being offered. The Council sought our submission, not our cooperation. They feared what we might become if allowed to grow freely. So they conspired to destroy us before we became too strong to stop." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We did not want this war, but we will not apologize for refusing to die quietly. Every colony, every world, every station will be defended. We have prepared for this moment for years, and we will not fail." Her voice hardened. "To our enemies I say this. You had your chance to treat us as equals. You chose instead to treat us as prey. That was a mistake you will regret." Back on the Council station, slipped out of the chaotic chamber. She found Ambassador waiting in a quiet corridor, as if she had known exactly where it would go. "You planned all of this," said. Laura nodded. "We had to. The Council was never going to give us a fair chance. The only way to survive was to expose the corruption at the heart of your government." "What happens now?" "That depends on you and others like you." Laura met the eyes steadily. "Not everyone in the Council supported this conspiracy. We know that. We have seen the private objections you raised, the questions you asked that were ignored. You wanted peace as much as we did." It was quiet for a long moment. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance, with those willing to build something better than what exists now. The Council as it stands is broken. Help us replace it with something worth believing in." Behind them, they could hear High Chancellor shouting for order as his empire crumbled around him. 3 months had passed since the truth was revealed in the Council chamber. 3 months of war that spread across a dozen sectors. 3 months of battles that proved again and again that humanity was not the easy target the Council had expected. High Chancellor had responded to the crisis by doubling down on aggression. If the Council's authority could not be restored through diplomacy, it would be restored through overwhelming force. He gathered every warship from every loyal species and aimed them at the heart of human civilization. The Sol system, Earth's home. Admiral Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the ironclad and watched the enemy fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. His sensors counted the incoming vessels. 300, 400, 600. The number kept climbing until it reached nearly 1,000 warships arrayed against him. He had 300 ships to defend humanity's birthplace. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "all civilian evacuation transports have cleared the system. Non-combat personnel are safe." "Good." Carter studied the enemy formation. They were confident. They had learned from the defeat and adjusted their tactics. This would not be as easy as New Montana. "Signal all ships. We hold the line until reinforcements arrive. No retreat, no surrender." The battle began. Human ships fought with desperate courage. Their weapons tore holes in enemy formations, but for every ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Council fleet pushed forward slowly but steadily, paying for every kilometer in blood but advancing nonetheless. Captain Torres led his experimental stealth cruiser, the Ghost, through the chaos. His ship was nearly invisible to enemy sensors, a prototype that had never been tested in actual combat until today. His mission was simple and nearly impossible: Find the enemy command ships. Destroy them. Stealth field holding, his engineer reported. We are passing through their formation undetected. Torres watched enemy vessels drift past his windows, close enough to touch. One wrong move and they would be discovered. One mistake and they would die. He kept his breathing steady and his hands calm. There, he said, pointing to a massive vessel at the center of the enemy fleet. The command carrier, that is our target. The ghost slipped through the battle like a shadow, weaving between explosions and debris. Torres brought his ship directly beneath the command carrier, so close that its weapons could not angle down to hit him. Fire everything. The ghost unleashed its full arsenal into the carrier's unprotected belly. The massive ship shuddered and broke apart, its destruction sending shockwaves through the enemy formation. Without central coordination, the Council fleet's advance slowed as captains waited for orders that would never come. But it was not enough. The enemy still outnumbered the defenders 3-1. Torres watched the battle unfold and knew that they were losing. Slowly, painfully, but losing nonetheless. Then new contacts appeared on every sensor screen. A fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel behind the Council forces. 100 warships with familiar configurations, designs. Torres felt his heart stop for a moment. If they had come to reinforce the Council, the battle was already over. Admiral Aura's voice crackled across all frequencies. Human fleet, this is the Defense Force. We are here to honor our new alliance. Sends her regards. The ships opened fire on the Council fleet from behind. Caught between two forces, the enemy formation collapsed into chaos. Ships that had been advancing confidently now scrambled to defend themselves from attacks on multiple sides. Captains who had expected an easy victory found themselves fighting for survival. Admiral Carter allowed himself a smile. All ships push forward, drive them out of our system. The battle lasted another 4 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after they arrived. The Council fleet retreated in disorder, leaving hundreds of destroyed vessels behind. Humanity's home was safe. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Though one of the founding members of the Galactic Council had openly sided with humanity, the alliance that had ruled for 10,000 years was cracking apart. Chancellor Myers of the Collective watched the battle reports from her. She had always had doubts about the war against humanity. The evidence ambassador had presented proved that those doubts were justified. Her people had been manipulated into supporting a corrupt regime. She called an emergency meeting of the leadership. The debate lasted only 2 hours. When it ended, she broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. The Collective hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council. We refuse to fight for a government built on lies and conspiracy. Any species that wishes to join us in building a new order based on truth and equality is welcome. 3 more species followed within the week, then 5 more. The Council's membership, once over 300 worlds, began to shrink as the facade of legitimate authority crumbled away. High Chancellor grew desperate. His allies were abandoning him. His fleets were being destroyed. His enemies grew stronger while his own power weakened. He needed something to change the balance, something decisive, something terrible. In a secure bunker deep beneath the Council station, authorized the use of forbidden weapons, planet killers, missiles capable of destroying entire worlds. They had been banned by Council law for 8,000 years, considered too horrible to use under any circumstances. But circumstances had changed. Target the human colonies, he ordered. All of them. If we cannot rule this galaxy, we will burn it down and start again. Dr. Grant was the scientist who had developed the weapons that surprised the at New Montana. She was brilliant, driven, and had spent the last decade preparing humanity for this exact conflict. When intelligence reports crossed her desk describing his plan, she felt sick. She took the reports directly to Admiral Carter. He read them in silence, his face growing darker with every page. "He is insane," Carter said finally. "He would murder billions of innocent people just to avoid admitting defeat." "The weapons are real," confirmed. "Our intelligence shows they are being prepared for launch. We have maybe 2 weeks before they are ready." Carter stood and walked to the window of his office, looking out at the stars. "Then we have 2 weeks to end this war. We cannot wait for to destroy everything we have built." He turned back to face her. "How do we stop him?" "There is only one way. We have to take the council station itself. Capture, disable the weapons before they can be launched." "That station is a fortress. It would require everything we have." Nodded. "I know, but if we do not try, humanity dies. Every colony, every world, everyone we have ever loved." She met his eyes steadily. "I did not spend my life building weapons of defense just to watch our people burn. Tell me what you need and I will make it happen." Admiral Carter was silent for a long moment. Then he reached for his communication console. "Get me Ambassador and we have a war to win." The combined fleet gathered at the edge of neutral space, the largest armada ever assembled by species who had once been strangers to each other. Human warships flew in formation alongside cruisers and destroyers, ships from a dozen different civilizations, all united by a common purpose. Admiral Daniel Carter looked at the tactical display and felt the weight of history pressing down on him. In a few hours, they would either save the galaxy or watch it burn. There was no middle ground. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his first officer announced. "Signal the fleet. We jump in 60 seconds." Across the formation, crews prepared for what might be their final battle. Commander Morgan ran her hands over the controls of the Relentless, feeling the familiar hum of engines beneath her feet. Captain Torres powered up the Ghost stealth systems for one last mission. Stood on the bridge of a battleship, knowing that she was about to fight against the government she had served her entire life. They all believed it was worth it. The fleet jumped. The Galactic Council station appeared before them, surrounded by the remnants of loyal Council forces. Perhaps 300 ships remained to defend the corrupt government that had ruled for 10. They formed a wall between the station and the incoming fleet, ready to die for a cause that no longer deserved their loyalty. Admiral Carter opened a channel to the enemy fleet. "This is Admiral Daniel Carter. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to end a corrupt regime that has betrayed every principle it claimed to stand for. Stand down and let us pass. No one else needs to die today." For a long moment there was no response. Then, one by one, ships began to break formation. Captains who had seen the evidence, who knew the truth about their leaders, chose not to die for a lie. Within minutes, more than half the defending fleet had moved aside. The rest opened fire. The battle for the Council station was brief but brutal. Ships died on both sides, adding their wreckage to the void. Commander Morgan led her squadron through the enemy lines, creating openings for the main fleet to exploit. Captain Torres took the Ghost on one final stealth run, disabling the station's outer defense platforms from within. Inside the station, High Chancellor watched his last defenders fall. He had retreated to the Weapon Control Center, where the planet killers waited for his command. If he could not win, he would make sure humanity lost everything. "Launch the weapons," he ordered. "Target every human world, destroy them all." His officers hesitated. These were not soldiers. They were technicians who had never expected to commit genocide. "I said launch them." One technician reached for the controls with trembling hands. Before she could touch them, the console exploded in a shower of sparks. Every system in the room went dead. Agent Sam stepped out of a maintenance corridor, a small device in his hand. "I have been sabotaging your systems for the last 6 hours. Did you really think we would let you fire those weapons?" Lunged at him with claws extended, easily, and struck the High Chancellor across the face, sending him crashing to the floor. "You should have accepted peace when you had the chance." Minutes later, Admiral Carter's flagship docked at the station. Human Marines stormed through the corridors alongside soldiers, meeting little resistance. Most of the station's personnel had already surrendered. They had seen the evidence. They knew their leaders were guilty. The Marines found in the Weapon Control Center, bound and guarded by Agent. The High Chancellor looked up at Carter with pure hatred burning in his reptilian eyes. "You cannot do this," spat. "I am the High Chancellor of the Galactic Council. I demand to be treated with the respect owed to a head of state." Carter looked down at him without sympathy. "You plan to murder billions of innocent people. You manipulated entire civilizations into fighting a war based on lies. You corrupted an institution that was supposed to bring peace to the galaxy." He shook his head. "War criminals do not get respect. They get justice." The great chamber where the council had met for 10,000 years was filled for the last time. But now it was filled with representatives of a new order. Humans stood alongside, and dozens of other species who had chosen truth over tradition. Ambassador Laura took the central platform. She looked older than she had at the start of this conflict, worn by months of war and the weight of responsibility. But her voice was strong. "The old council is dissolved. Its corrupt leaders will face trial for their crimes. The evidence of their conspiracy will be broadcast to every world so that all may know what was done in their name." She paused, looking around the chamber at faces both familiar and strange. "But ending the old order is not enough. We must build something better." She outlined her proposal, a new galactic assembly based on true equality between species. No more ancient privileges, no more hidden conspiracies. Every member would have a voice, and every voice would be heard. Seconded the proposal. So did Chancellor Myra's. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy added their support. Not everyone agreed, but enough did. A new beginning was possible. The trials lasted 3 months, and his co-conspirators were found guilty on charges ranging from corruption to attempted genocide. They would spend the rest of their lives in prison, their crimes remembered by history as a warning to future generations. 1 year after the war ended, Senator Palmer stood before a crowd of millions on New Montana. It was the anniversary of the Battle of Earth, when they had arrived to turn the tide, a day that would be remembered forever. "We did not seek this war," Palmer said, her voice carried across the planet by countless speakers. "We came to the stars hopping to find friends among the other species of the galaxy. Instead, we found a corrupt system that saw us as a threat to be eliminated. When they offered us peace, it was the peace of surrender, the peace of slavery, the peace of extinction." She paused, letting silence fill the moment. "We rejected that peace because we believed we deserved better. We believed the galaxy deserved better, and we were right." She gestured to the crowd, where humans stood side by side with visitors, traders, and representatives of a dozen other species. "Look at what we have built together. An alliance based on respect, a government based on truth, a future based on hope." Her voice softened. "We paid a terrible price for this future. Good people died so that others might live free. We must never forget their sacrifice, and we must never forget the lesson they taught us." She looked up at the sky, where stars glittered like promises waiting to be kept. The galaxy learned something important in this war. Humanity does not bluff. Humanity does not bow. And humanity never forgets who reached out the hand of friendship when it mattered most. She smiled, and there was warmth in it now. "To our allies, our friends, our partners in building this new world, thank you. Together, we will make sure that no one ever has to fight this war again." The crowd erupted in cheers that echoed across the planet and through broadcasts across the galaxy. A new era had begun.